Hello, beautiful being, and welcome back to another beautiful week of the Whole Soul Podcast. I'm so happy you're here with me today. I hope you're having a beautiful day wherever you are. Whether it's sunny, it's rainy, or cloudy, I hope that you found at least one pocket of peace in your day today. And maybe your pocket of peace is listening to this podcast and dropping in, regulating here with me. My intention with this podcast every time I drop into a flow is to just drop into my heart, bring the healing vibes, the regulating energy into the space to transmit that and transfer that into your field of existence, into your aura, which is beautiful and so important because the things that we invest our energy into, the places that we put ourselves in, the people that we choose to listen to or get inspired by or spend our time with, have a very big impact on our auric field. Actually, in one of Dr. Joe Dispenza's books about energy and the quantum field, I believe it's either in Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself or in Becoming Supernatural. But there is a photo of two atoms. And when these two atoms are next to each other, their fields literally cross. So they become enmeshed. And this is actually an example of what happens with humans when we share presence together, or we share time together, or we're even around each other and not speaking. So this is why a lot of times when maybe you're a hypersensitive person, when you go into a crowd or you go into a populated place with a lot of people, you start to feel drained very fast, or you have thoughts that come into your space that don't feel like yours, but you might feel like it's you. It's because we are very energetically sensitive beings. We're energetic beings, so anything that we come into contact with does, in fact, play a very big role and impact on our energetic field of consciousness. So with that being said, welcome to the space. Today I wanted to drop into sisterhood wounds, healing the sisterhood wound and what that even looks like. Especially as women, we have all experienced this at some point in our lives. And I'm sure of it because competition, lack, scarcity, judgment, all of these lower vibrational energies, feelings, and reactions are so deeply imprinted and conditioned and programmed into us from a young age. From the movies we watch, from the TV shows we consume, from the music that we listen to, from the examples of relationship that are in front of us in grade school and elementary school and high school, our parents' relationships with their friends, and even the relationships we see through, movies and TV shows. You can think of Mean Girls, for example, and how toxic those relationship dynamics really actually are, but they're portrayed as normal, as just something that happens in high school, and it's spread through mass media and mass exposure. But if you really question it and think of it, it's like, well, why is that the main thing being shown and broadcasted to people and young women especially? Why are we being preemptively programmed to have these models in our consciousness from a young age? It's a really interesting thing, but if you really look deeper into where sisterhood wounds come from, or where competition or where jealousy or where comparison comes from, it's so deeply rooted in our programming, even through our DNA expression, our genetic expression from the way that our parents were and how they related and how our grandparents were and what their subconscious beliefs and programming were. So it goes very deep. That's essentially, there's so many sources from which it comes. But if you're listening to this right now, I'm sure you've experienced sisterhood wounds at some point in your life. And a really powerful unlock that I've experienced in my life is becoming aware and conscious of what these wounds are, because they are painful. It is painful to live with competition, with jealousy, with comparison. It leaves a weight, it leaves a stain on your aura. It's not empowering. It doesn't feel good. It creates drama between your relationships, also reactivity within yourself. So I invite you to maybe just reflect on your relationships with women. How have they generally gone? Is there a pattern that you recognize that goes from relationship to relationship? Maybe reflect on what feelings come up consistently when you are in the presence of a friend that's a female or a group of women. Because these triggers, we can call them, when they come up in our life, are actually guides for us to reflect on what is going on a deeper level within ourselves. Triggers are a beautiful opportunity for us to do deeper self-exploration and healing work within ourselves so that we can break the cycles of comparison or judgment or competition within our relationships and therefore our life. They allow us, if we so choose to see them this way, to become better human beings, to improve our relationships and therefore improve our life. Because relationships are a huge aspect of our health. There's actually this tool called the circle of life, where it's this holistic wheel of health, and some of the things that it includes are your nutrition, your joy, your spirituality, your home cooking, your education, your career, your finances, and your relationships, and some more. But when you can bring this circle to balance and recognize where you are within each of these categories within the whole realm of holistic health and what makes you a whole and healthy human being, the closer you come to a state of health. So your relationships are a huge, important aspect of that. And throughout my life, I've had a fair share of sisterhood wounds and I guess triggers that have come up in my life over and over and over again. And what I've noticed is that until I do the work within myself to notice a pattern and kind of reprogram the way I be or create new experiences to reprogram my subconscious, they keep showing up. They keep presenting opportunities for me to transcend whatever feeling or emotion keeps coming up. And throughout this, I guess I will give an example right now, but I've always been a more quiet child, more introverted, more, I guess you could say, a pushover. In my life as a child at the playground, my mom would share that I would be so nice that there would be girls or people that would just take advantage of my softness, which was portrayed, and I was programmed to believe that my softness was a weakness, that, you know, at that time I couldn't speak up for myself or I couldn't stand up for myself. And so as I grew up, I kept attracting friends into my life that would be over dominant or would manipulate me because I was so nice and I guess pure-hearted in a sense that I wouldn't think that people would take advantage of me, because I wouldn't do that to my friends in my life. And so in many different ways that manifested, where throughout my high school years and even the beginning of my adult life, I would call in people, or women specifically, that would most times have an easier time expressing themselves, or they would have a big energy. And a trigger for me that would come up is that they're taking up more space and not giving me the space to be myself, which would make me feel unsafe. So this kind of wound that I had with women at the time when I was unconscious would make me feel like I didn't feel safe around women. But what I realized that is it presented me an opportunity to see this pattern of who I'm calling into my life, and see that there's an opportunity for me to transcend this feeling of being small, or feeling like I need to shrink in the presence of someone's energy that is unapologetic and big. And there's nothing wrong with it. There is light and shadow to everything. And it was also presenting me an opportunity to step into my fullness and my bigness, which I naturally didn't feel inclined or comfortable to being. And as I've had actually a relationship in my life that really illuminated this to me in my conscious adult life, I've grown so much. And instead of seeing this person as someone that was trying to hurt me or negative in my life, I actually chose to see them as one of my greatest teachers. Something just fell. But I chose to see them as a teacher and a guide that is giving me this opportunity to transcend this pain point, this wound that kept coming up relationship after relationship with women. And although it wasn't a clean ride, there was lots of ups and downs in the process of this friendship, we've healed so much. We both mirrored so many wounds and triggers to each other, but because we were both conscious enough to do the work together and not just run away from each other, we've evolved so much together as women, as a friendship, and it's been the most beautiful process that's allowed us to both be empowered women to recognize our unique gifts and qualities and expressions, and love that about each other and celebrate each other for that, rather than feeling less than because someone else has qualities that maybe necessarily you don't have, but they're giving you the opportunity and the mirror to be able to strengthen that within yourself. So since I've been seeing my relationships and friendships from this perspective of, well, anytime there's a trigger that comes up and we're both conscious enough to be able to vulnerably share and communicate whenever something comes up that's triggering, this gives us both an opportunity to grow and transcend whatever lower vibrations or emotions are present in that situation. And since then, life has just become so much more open, so much more expansive, so much more beautiful. And throughout that process, I'm realizing that as women, as humans, we cannot reach our full potential. And I'll speak for women specifically in this case, but as women, we cannot reach our fullest potential and expression and expansion without the presence of other like-minded, empowered, pure beings and women in our life to reflect that back to us. Because sometimes we can't see our fullest potential, especially when we're in periods of doubt or loneliness. And that's why it's important to have, I say, holy company in your life that sees you so fully and so deeply. They see your potential. They celebrate you. They lift you up even when you can't necessarily fully see yourself. And that is sacred sisterhood. That is such an important aspect in our life as women that is so lacking, especially in the society we live in the West, and in the world generally, where we're just such individualists. We feel like we have to do everything on our own. And generally, we don't feel safe around other women because generally, there's a lot of toxicity that exists in the field and the consciousness of women. There's a lot of unhealed aspects of the psyche within the majority of women. So when you can start doing the work within yourself to notice, what are my triggers? What are my patterns with women? What is the most painful thing that comes up for me in relationships with women? When you can start to become aware of this, notice where it shows up, you can start doing the work to let it go and transmute and alchemize it. And it's especially helpful when you have people in your life to do it with you, especially when you have another conscious woman that is open to doing the work and wants to heal and wants to grow and wants to expand with you. That is such a beautiful thing. So if you have friends you can do that with, amazing. If you don't right now, if you feel like you're more in a lonely phase of your life where you don't really have sacred sisterhood or friends that want to grow with you or friends that you can grow with, I just want to say it's okay to have those phases in life, those chapters. I have definitely had fair shares of times in my life where I felt more lonely and isolated because I didn't have those sisters in my life. I didn't have strong friendships. Those were actually phases and periods in my life where I was in a greater chapter of letting go of what no longer served. I was outgrowing those relationships and so many other things in my life so that I could actually create space and build a new foundation within myself to call in women and friends and people into my life that could meet me at my depth, that could meet me in the desire for growth and expansion and transformation together. So your timing will come. If you don't have that solid group of friends right now, keep showing up, have faith, trust your timing and your journey. You're exactly where you're meant to be. And this pain point of loneliness and isolation and feeling like you have nobody is probably one of the biggest pain points I've ever had in my life, which has inspired me to create a space, a safe space for women. It's actually called the Whole Soul Collective, where we gather every single week to be in a circle of vulnerability, of truth, of expansion, of coming back to our bodies through somatic practices, through grounding, through meditation, remembering your true nature. And we've been at this for the last few months now. I started in July. Everyone that's joined has stayed, which is such a beautiful testament to the connections and the depth and the transformation that is taking place in this container. So if this is something that you feel excited by or something you feel like you need in your life right now to be seen, to be supported and celebrated, I invite you in. The doors are open. I will put the link in the description to join. I would absolutely adore to have you in. And I just want to let you know I love you. Thank you for being here. Make sure you rate this podcast on Spotify and give it a like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Any engagement, any loves, any ratings really help this podcast grow and reach more beautiful souls like you that need it, that are going through spiritual awakenings or transitions, or you're just wanting to lean deeper into your health and transformation journey. So please pay it forward. I love you, and I will see you next week.